Hey, Raymond. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, so I've been in Ethereum and crypto for about 3.5 years, and then I've been working full time in crypto for about 2.5 years. And I'm currently the chief DeFi officer of Zapper. I always smile when I say that because it sounds ridiculous, but it's real. And I have been really a DeFi super user for almost about 2 years. Since summer of 2019 I started like using everything I possibly could. And then, yeah, as Jamil generously mentioned, I also have a YouTube channel that is DeFiDead.com. So I do free tutorials on how to use DeFi. And then we have
Sure. So let's dive on in. You have a slide deck to share?
I do, yeah. And I just want to make sure I leave enough time for questions. Would you say, Raymond, about 10 minutes? Is that ideal?
Yeah.
10 minutes?
Just take your time. It shouldn't have be an issue.
Absolutely. All right. So here we go. Let me go ahead and share this here. So I actually am going to try to stick to talking through live examples, but I do have some slides here just to sort of guide us. So cool. All right. We already covered who am I? That's who I am. Again, I would consider myself more of an educator, but because I educate, I have become an investor in different DeFi protocols. Most of them too is just by taking part in the community, owning those tokens, having a voice in the governance of that. Actually, let me go ahead and blow this up for you. Oops. Let me present. There we go. Cool. All right. And then just very quickly, what we're going to talk about is, let me hop to this. Too many slides about what we're going to talk about is what is yield farming. I want to walk you through how to actually discover those opportunities. What are the tools that are necessary to get started? What are some common examples, and then some of the risks to consider? And then very quickly, just a reminder here of what we'll do
in our stat game.
Oh, here we go. Let's go back one more. What you can do with Zapper, and this is sort of important thing, which is tracking your DeFi portfolio. So there's no reason that anyone in the world would be investing without being able to know where's my money, and is my money earning more money, or is it not performing well? So that's what we do with Zapper. You just connect to your Ethereum wallet, connect as many wallets as you'd like, and of like, where is my money based on different protocols, different applications, versus the types of investments like liquidity pools versus staking versus like yield farming, even NFTs. We're helping to track that now as well. All right. And okay, so very briefly, what is yield farming? There's actually a lot of people, I would say most of the world still doesn't quite understand what we're talking about when we mention yield farming. And I mean, at the core of yield farming, it is providing liquidity in almost all scenarios. It's about bootstrapping the liquidity to make a protocol successful. And faced and is now being, I think, very efficiently addressed by yield farming programs or liquidity mining programs. And in terms of yield farming, it should only require something like MetaMask, never require KYC. There's no sort of sign up. This is your standard sort of permissionless, trustless experience in DeFi. Now, what actually qualifies as yield farming, the way I define it, and I think this has become generally accepted across the community, is that you're earning multiple forms of yield. You are farming yield. And so you're essentially stacking different ways to earn, which happen to normally be symbiotic. They tend to benefit one another. So you might be earning some lending interest while you're also earning trading fees, while you're also earning a new inflationary token, a new issued reward that is a governance token. So at the end of the day, I would consider yield farming almost like a customer acquisition cost. You are issuing rewards to those who are helping to make you successful from day one. If I could get paid by Facebook for having been one of their earliest users, I would have Facebook stock. And I believe that is the future, but I don't have that. I have nothing to show from it except for they have all my data and own everything about me. By the way, I'm going to pause a sec just to make sure. Raymond, am I coming in clear? Like, any questions so far? All good?
Nope, it's all coming in clear. Yep.
All right, excellent. So here's what I look for in yield farms before we talk about like discovering opportunities. And reminder, none of this is financial advice, but this is how I personally approach, looking for yield farming programs that should suit my tolerance of risk. So first off, I look where I can use assets I already hold. If I'm sitting on Ether and I work, why not do that? And granted, I'll talk to you about that a little bit later. There's actually a lot of risks that would lead you to say why I wouldn't actually do that. Then we have farming governance tokens or rewards that I normally would hold long term. So if I see that the reward is something that I actually would like to be holding or participating in terms of their governance, it makes a hell of a lot more sense for me. And then the last piece I look for is minimal claiming or just activity in general, because more transactions normally means that I have to pay more gas. And as long as Ethereum is still the largest landmass, and we talk about the gas costs that everyone has been stressed out about over the last few months here, I want to minimize those fees don't eat up my profits. So in terms of discovering opportunities, I normally do that through Zapper. This is part of the reason I joined Zapper. I was using the tool, addictively, and I felt like this is the ultimate onboarding tool to be able to. Now, I'm gonna share a different screen here instead of talking you through more slides. Here we go. All right. So again, reminder. The dashboard is the most common utility that we find on Zapper, where you're just tracking like, what are all of my tokens? What about my liquidity pools? What's staked and so on. But if I hop over to the farm tab, this is where I can start to discover. In this case, we have about 490 different farming opportunities. So I can start to search by tokens that I already hold. So for example, if I hold Aave, these are 4 different opportunities that require me to participate using Aave. If I have wrapped with wrapped Bitcoin and Ether, I can see how liquid it is. So some of the things I consider are, what am I holding? What are protocols that are already credible? So like in the case of what we show here, we're still adding lots more protocols. So I would say we have tended to add what we find to be the most credible and trusted protocols already. But anyways, if I had any distrust, I might find out. Liquidity matters to me because I want to be able to pull my money out whenever I want. If something has less than $1 million in liquidity, I might be cautious that, so we just sort of covered this idea of, actually, if I go back just a few. So we talked about what is yield farming. We talked about discovering opportunities. So there are other tools that I would recommend taking a look at. I think CoinGecko has a list of all farms. The thing I like about what we do at Zapper is, our goal is to take action on. So that's why the zapper.fi/farm it's a place where you can find an opportunity. So we'll go back to this now. Here we go. And I'll just hop into some examples of this so that can help you to get started. Here we go. Okay, so let's say that I want to, let's pretend that I have wrapped Bitcoin. And I want to put that wrapped Bitcoin to work earning me. So I go here and I look up, I see that there is a wrapped Bitcoin Ether LP, and that's in SushiSwap. So here's what I do. I hop over one tab to the pool tab, and now I'm able to actually get started in that liquidity provision by clicking invest, and I can start with any token I want. Let's pretend in this case, instead of wrapped Bitcoin or Ether, let's start with a totally unrelated token like 100 DAI. Now what'll happen here is Zapper doesn't take custody of my funds, but it will take my 100 DAI and it will swap it into a 50-50 provision of the two tokens, and then add that liquidity to SushiSwap. And then once I've got that, I can then stake the wrapped Bitcoin Ether LP here. I'll have a little stake button here that allows me to do that. Here's a few examples of, here's other LP tokens, liquidity provision tokens, or individual tokens like DAI that I hold that I could choose to stake and start to earn rewards. So that's a more straightforward example, I think, of me providing liquidity. So that's the pool tab, but then me being rewarded for providing that liquidity and strengthening, the future success of the protocol. Okay, just want to double check. Am I coming in clear? Raymond, any issues at all?
Yeah, it's coming in much more clear now.
Oh, good. Okay, woo, just got to yell at Xfinity next time. Okay, let's go. Let me just double check here if there was, okay. So I want to give you a few common tools to get started in DeFi. So let me just reshare. Okay, so the few tools, breaking it down into like the journey of getting started with yield farming. First off, you have to have the ability, of course, to interact with DeFi protocols. So no surprise, you need an Ethereum wallet, or if you're on another chain, of course, some other wallet on that chain. And so I normally use MetaMask just because it is compatible with everything. It allows me to use just about everything in DeFi. The next thing then is, we already ran through this, but you can track all of your portfolio with Zapper. Then to participate, I do believe that pool tab that allows me to invest into 1,000 plus LPs, liquidity provisions, that is the ultimate gateway to helping me put any token to work in DeFi. Normally, in the past, you would have had to swap for the correct tokens. You have to prepare a 50-50 provision in terms of most liquidity provisions like SushiSwap or Uniswap. All of that has gone away by using a tool like Zapper. And then the last bit of this is just keeping up to date on the information here. If you follow me on Twitter, we're always tweeting about new opportunities. Yield TV, we cover a lot of the new DeFi protocols, the Defiant, Bankless. Gabriel Haynes is another one of many wonderful DeFi YouTubers. Okay, Raymond, I just want to double check. Am I still coming in clear?
Yep, it's all coming in clear.
Cool. I just wanted to cover one more simpler yield farming opportunity, and then we can kind of wrap up and roll into some questions. Here we go. Okay. All right. So normally, if you wanted to stake Ether in Ethereum 2.0, the Beacon chain, people are earning, I think, around 10% or more, but they're running, hardware, they're running software, and, they have to make sure they have a secure or they have a consistent internet connection, unlike mine. But this is where DeFi yield farming in general becomes, I think, more powerful. Is you can do all of this with no minimums, and you can do it with any, I guess, amount then, and I don't have to even get signed up here with some more expensive hardware. So one of the simplest things is, in this case, putting my Ether to work, but earning additional rewards. So if I hop over to the farm tab and I put in ETH, I can look here. Actually, let's look up Curve instead. And then let's look up ETH. Actually, let's look up Steph. All right, there we go. So there is the staked Ether pool and Curve. It's just Ether and staked Ether, but it's not just about earning the interest or staking rewards as the appropriate name for what I'm earning when I'm staking Ether. It's also about earning the governance token Curve and then Lido's governance token, which is how I'm able to actually stake that Ether. So if I were to, let's say, get involved in this pool, what am I actually doing is, let me hop over here to this tab. Steph, there we go. And let me reshare. So staked Ether, in order for Lido's staked Ether to be successful, they need that liquidity. So I'm able to hop into something like Curve, and I can start to deposit liquidity into this Curve pool so that people can trade for staked Ether with their Ether. And so instead of me just depositing like my Ether into staked Ether here, I'm able to earn additional rewards. I'm able to earn market making fees from Curve, the Curve governance token, and then the Lido governance token. So long story short, here's what I end up doing. So here's the full gambit. I've got my Ether here in my wallet. I hop to the exchange and first off, I could just swap for staked Ether and call it a day. Now, if I do that, I'm now holding a form of Ether, staked Ether, that's earning me about 7% annually. But instead, I can hop to the pool tab, look up the Steph token here, and then here we are. This is the Curve pool. So I can then invest my Ether into a pool where I'm now a market maker. So I'm now I'm making the Lido Steph token more liquid, and I'm probably helping to ensure the future success of it. So if I were to do that, the final step then is I can then stake that Steph LP token. So I would end up receiving this, and now I'm earning Curve and Lido. So I started with Ether. I'm earning staking rewards. I'm earning the Curve governance token. I'm earning the LDO or Lido governance token. And so, I mean, this to me is like one of the most obvious examples of, you have an asset that you're already long on, it sits idle in your wallet. Why not help to ensure that other protocols are successful, especially ones that are more liquid? This one has 300 million in liquidity already in it. Why not participate in that and let your money work harder for you? All right, I think I made that sound much more complicated than what it should be, but there we go. Last thing I want to cover is just the risks. One last slide here. Always good to think about the risks. People tend to skip over this and talk about all the potential rewards. First off, there's smart contract risk. So there can be bugs in any protocol you participate in. So what I even just showed there was Curve, there's Lido, what else? I think actually those were the two there. So if there was a bug, we've all seen exploits where funds, are gone for one reason or another. So there's that. I worry less about this because I'm a little more conservative in terms of the grand spectrum of DeFi yield farm users. I tend to stick to bigger names that have more battle-tested code. But when you see something that says 3,000% APY, not that doesn't just signal that it must be a scam, but I do tend to question, is this just a short-term opportunity? Is there a chance that there are centralized controls, that they hold an admin key and that they could drain money from those smart contracts? Another thing about being a liquidity provider, part of the reason all of these protocols are rewarding you for being an LP is that there's impermanent loss. You put in X amount of Ether, X amount of wrapped Bitcoin, and if the price, if the two tokens don't stay in lockstep, going up and down in price, you could walk away having less Ether, less Bitcoin, or more of one of the two tokens. Another thing is just pegged assets like stable coins or something like wrapped Bitcoin. You know, there is always the risk that these could depeg, or they could just be off peg enough that it starts to create some systemic problems in DeFi. And then just the fact that everything is interconnected in DeFi. Doesn't matter what chain you're on, whether you're on Ethereum or any other chain, it's all very interconnected. And so you have to consider what would happen if one of these pegged assets depegs. What happens if there's multiple yield farming programs going on and one of them gets hacked? Like, what would that do to the other protocol? So these are things you start to dig into more as you I think participate and start to experiment with more protocols. So Raymond, that's about it. I want to pause in case there's time for any questions, but hope that was helpful.
Yeah, sure. Let's. I'll have a couple questions to start. So I personally used Zapper myself. What I like most about it is that with ENS names, it's easy to track like bigger names. So for example, yours is like DeFiDad.eth. I've been looking at other big names too, like Kane from Synthetics and like other co-founders of protocols. And it's cool to see that you could just tail their, see what their plays are making, like what plays they're making, and see like their allocation for capitals. And one question I have is, do you see Zapper like adding an impermanent loss calculator, kind of like APY Vision?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that's missing here is the calculation of your performance. So like we give you everything in real time. Like this is your money. You can see here, this is, you make a great point. Like you can go in and put in dgenspartan.eth, or my wallet looked big until I showed this wallet. You can go to DeFiDad.eth. Or DeFiMaximalist.eth is another humongous wallet that's fun to look at. And you can even hop over to the history tab and see what have they been doing. What are some of the actions, and start to like maybe mirror what they're doing. But yeah, Raymond, what we're missing is we're going to have a historical performance chart, not just for your portfolio, but we want to show it more granularly for like, what have you been doing in synthetics? What have you been doing in Dodo, and so on.
Nice. Yeah, that would be awesome to add. Because I noticed that you guys just added the NFT tab recently. I like that one too.
Yeah. You can look at all your, one of the problems right now is while NFTs are growing more popular, one of the things that was missing is a lot of people who do have at least one NFT, it's not being accounted for. So, in this case, that's $18,000 worth of value. You might even discover that some of your NFTs are priced at a higher price than you expected. But yeah, you can click into these and start to look at them individually.
All right, so let's field some questions from the audience. James Dix from Crypto Oracle says, could you give some of the basic economic drivers for higher APYs from yield farming?
Yeah. They're actually really straightforward. In most cases, it's about, I don't want to say getting in early, but it's about how much money participates. How big of the pie do you own? So if I'm in a liquidity pool that's 10 million, and if it grows to 100 million, let's pretend I have $1,000 in it, I'm earning a lot more of the rewards that are being issued every block when it's at 10 million versus 100. Another thing that part of the reason I said I tend to focus on yield farming, where it gives me a token that I would normally hold, is that people go into a liquidity mining program or yield farming program, and that token might take off in price. But now if the token falls by 50%, well, your reward, your APY falls by 50%. So I'm always like, if I look at a token and I think it's garbage, or I think the protocol in general doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or I don't like something about the team, I'm less likely to want to earn that token, because it might cost me more gas to get in than it takes for me to take profits on that token at a later date. So hope that helps.
All right. Another question comes from Alexander Gloy from Lighthouse Investment. He's asking whether Zapper will give a 1099 or how will like how does it work with no KYC/AML kind of thing?
Yeah, good question. So Zapper never takes custody of your funds. So we're kind of like a fancy doorway into DeFi. And so at the end of the day, you can work with someone like Token Tax, and they will allow you to, you can put in your Ethereum wallet address, and then they'll help you to, calculate what taxes you owe. But right now, unless we start to take custody of funds, we're, what do I want to say? We're more of like a tracking platform, and like I said, a fancy doorway, and everything that's taxable, those events should be triggered by what you're doing with the individual protocols. So check out Token Tax. It's one of the most helpful resources out there. It's definitely how I plan to do my taxes this year. Hope that helps.
All right. So the last question we have to wrap it all up is, it comes from Rahul. He says, what is the difference between investing in the pool, like a 50-50 LP, versus just staking, like just DAI?
Investing in a pool versus staking with DAI. Good question. Okay, so staking is really should be used interchangeably with lending. You're lending liquidity, you're lending maybe a liquidity provision token. So when I think about lending, the idea is that I'm putting some liquidity in and borrowing a smart contract exploit. I should be getting all of that plus more back. And so when we talk about a liquidity provision, we showed earlier the wrapped Bitcoin Ether pair. The challenge with that, the risk is that I could have let's pretend the tokens literally go opposite directions. Ether goes up, Bitcoin goes down, or Bitcoin goes up, Ether goes down. Well, now I could start to be in a world of hurt over the fact that, I've actually walked away with, if Bitcoin goes up in price, I'm technically selling to others that are trading it. And I'm buying the token at the lower price Ether. So anyways, that is the bigger difference. There's some real risk to consider in permanent loss when you're a liquidity provider. At the end of the day, though, staking has to do with how do I prove that I am a liquidity provider? There's a lot of people that will become an LP in one of those pools, and the protocol doesn't want to unnecessarily pay them rewards. Say, hey, let's assume everyone's here for the same reasons. They want to support us. By staking the liquidity provision token, I'm basically raising my hand on chain to say, hey, I'm here to support you guys. I want my share of the governance token for participating. Hopefully that helps.
All right, cool.
Anything else?
That brings an end to our time on stage. It was great having you speak. I learned a lot about Zapper, especially the aspect with the automatic 50-50 for the LP pools. That was really cool. So now we'll welcome Chris to the stage.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Feel free to drop your contact information in the chat.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Good luck with the event. It's wonderful.
Thank you.